Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this video where we are looking at the Duotone Float. This is a wave orientated wing and the example we have is 5 meters in size. Being a 5 meter wing and with my spot being predominantly wind blown swell, I'm not expecting to be surfing particularly large waves, but regardless we can tell a lot from the wing without riding huge surf. Duotone introduced this wing as a wave specialised wing, whilst at the same time removing the slick from production. The Float is an all Dacron wing, unlike all previous wings in Duotone's range, which come with a D-Lab version. The Float is also boom only. There is no option to fit handles, and due to this it comes in an elongated bag, so you can pack the wing into that bag with the boom still attached. We have a Dacron leading edge and strut, and the canopy is a combination of ripstop for the coloured area close to the leading edge and Mod 3S for the rest of the canopy to the trailing edge. Mod 3 and Mod 3S are already well proven to be very good at keeping the canopy stretch minimised. As usual, we have a load diffuser at the rear of the strut and also at the wingtips. The trailing edge features 2 battens per side and the canopy layout is one of small square panels, such that if we do puncture the canopy we hopefully only replace a small square section. We do not have any radial stitching in the canopy that we've seen on other wings to carry load. The boom is carbon and very lightweight. It is also much cheaper than the boom for the previous Slick, so it is more affordable to buy one boom per wing, which is a good thing as swapping booms is not a quick process on this new wing. Being a wave wing, we don't have a huge amount of dihedral, and surprisingly for a wave wing we have an unexpectedly tight canopy, which is really quite rare for a wave orientated wing. We have no windows on this wing. Usually wave wings are quite loose at the rear of the canopy and this creates stability from drag as the canopy is loose. Here the Duotone is completely different, the canopy is tight and the stability is created from the aerodynamic shape of the wing rather than parasitic drag. You can see this aerodynamic profile in the angling of the wingtips, and I'm intrigued to see how this will behave for freestyle and foiling tricks, as these are usually not good points for a wave orientated wing. The wing is itself quite deceptive as there is a lot of shaping to this wing. If you just look at the canopy infill, it appears like it is a low profile high end wing, but that is really not the case. This wing is advertised as having very good low end, which is completely at odds with the tiny infill panel and it looking like a high end wing. The boom is the same in size and shape as the booms or handles of the 2025 unit, and actually not really that much different to the shape on the previous 2024 unit, which is not a bad thing as all of these are comfortable to use. We do have a small pistol grip at the front of the boom as well, which is nice for flagging out and giving you an extra option to hold the wing in different conditions. If we move on to the front flag handle, here we have something entirely different to all previous Duotone wings. Finally, a decent sized, strong and stiff flag handle. This is really excellent, and just a note to Duotone, please also put this on the unit because the flag handle of that is still really lacking. It has the usual soft knuckle protection and will undoubtedly provide a much better connection to the wing when flagged out. We have the usual Duotone valve, the one pump system and the dump valve on the strut, much like other Duotone wings, and the wing pumps to 8 psi, which is pretty standard for a 5 meter Duotone wing. Flagging it out on the beach, we have a very neutral wing. You can immediately feel a difference between this wing and the unit. It is significantly more stable. Let's get this on the water and find out what it's all about. All of our wing reviews follow the same structure. We look at pumping onto foil, pump technique, low end and high end, stability, balance between the hands, gust handling, jibes, advanced jibes, tacks, jumps, flagging out, speed, backwinding and an overall summary. Starting with pumping onto foil, we immediately run into one of the things that the float is actually really good at, which is generating power to get onto foil. It has a really reassuring feel to it, the pump is uncomplicated, and both small pumps and larger pumps work, although my preference is for smaller pumps as it is a tight canopy and doesn't need time to fill with wind in between the pumps. I found it easy to get both my sinker board and my light wind board up to speed and out of the water, and this was definitely a pro for the float. Its ability to get you onto foil is uncomplicated and easy to access. It should come as no surprise that the low end is very good on this wing, but as is normally the case, if you have a wing that is very good on the low end, then things do tend to suffer a bit on the high end. This is true of the float. In overpowered conditions, it started to feel unsettled and moved around more than a wing with a good high end would normally do. This nervousness and shifting around in high winds is an indicator for me that it's time to change down a size, and the float communicates this once it's out of its comfort zone. This obviously leads directly into stability. The float is a very light wing with a good low end, and whilst in its comfort zone it is well behaved. The more you push it out of that comfort zone on the high end, the more it starts to move around and feel nervous, with the wing shifting its balance a little as it does that. From a stability perspective, it's a nice stable wing, providing you don't push it too far into overpowered conditions. I wouldn't say it ever feels like wings of old, which become very unstable. It just becomes more nervous and moves around more in gusts, which ultimately leads most foilers to go and change down a size. It is quite difficult to talk about balance between the hands, as this is a boom wing, so you have ultimate flexibility in where you put your hands. You aren't tied to any particular grip width. That said, I didn't feel like the balance between the hands started to shift around until the wing was well overpowered. Gust handling is reasonably well controlled and does result in an increase in acceleration, but much like being overpowered, big gusts can unbalance the wing a little and create a bit of movement and nervousness rather than just converting directly to speed. If we sum up the overall handling here, within a reasonable wind range, the float is well behaved and easy to handle. The more you push it beyond power conditions to overpowered, the less it likes it, and it communicates this with some nervousness and movement, but without becoming hard to control. It's almost like it's just starting to say, okay, enough now, time to go get a smaller wing, rather than soaking it up and going up a gear in speed. I think this is fair enough, as this isn't a speed or performance racing wing. It's a wave wing, and the performance is located where you want it in that category, which is in the low end. If we move along now to jibes, then once again we come into an area where the float is a joy to use. It's lightweight, has a boom, and with this comes some playfulness and a lovely ability to float round in jibes in a completely unflustered manner. It really has that ease of use that makes me very much recommend this for beginners, as it is so compliant and easy to handle. Now typically with wave wings, when we move on to more advanced jibes and tacks, it all falls apart a bit, as most wave wings have a fairly loose canopy and they can sometimes be unwilling to bend to the demands of more advanced jibes and tacks. The float is an exception to this, and I was very pleasantly surprised at just how compliant it was in both advanced jibes and tacks. In fact, I recognised a lot of the DNA from the Slick in how it performs in advanced jibes and tacks, which is 100% a positive thing. I really enjoyed doing foiling tricks with the float, and it really surprised me in how well it performed in these areas. It was also pretty good in jumps. I think the unit is better, but mostly this is down to speed and overall lift in the jump, whereas the float doesn't have that higher speed or initial lift you get when jumping on the unit. That said, it did do some quite respectable jumps, and I think it could quite viably be used to satisfy the demands of a freeride foiler wanting to do the occasional jumps. Obviously, if freestyle is your thing, then the unit would be a better choice. When it comes to flagging out, then this is the float's party trick. It is lovely and stable, and you can feel this immediately you go to the flag position. It just wants to sit and basically do nothing to upset you or your balance when riding on a wave. This is way ahead of the unit in terms of its composure when flagged, and the bigger, stiffer flag handle is miles better for controlling and guiding the wing while you ride. The float is also great to use going straight downwind on wind-blown swell. I usually get quite a bit of unwanted movement from a unit when doing this, as well as the tail dropping. The float is much lighter and excels in this environment, floating along and requiring very little input. Speed is not really in the float's tool bag. It isn't designed to be fast or indeed push high upwind, and unsurprisingly it isn't going to win awards for either of those. You can go faster and higher upwind on a unit, or indeed most other non-wave specialised wings. I wouldn't say it was slow or indeed bad at going upwind. It just doesn't deliver like a freeride wing, and I don't think we should expect it to. It's not designed with that in mind. For backwind riding, I found the float actually quite compliant and easy to use. It isn't a super stiff wing, so it bends enough to engage the canopy nicely in the backwind position, and was also relatively stable and happy to work in that position over extended distances. So it gets a pass on backwind, as it was both compliant and relatively easy to use in this mode. Lastly, I just want to point out that this is a boom wing, and as is the case with all boom wings, ergonomics and wrist angles are not ideal. So if you're sensitive to this, as I am, then extended use of a boom wing can give you some tendon soreness. It's just something to be aware of with boom wings. If you already get golfers or tennis elbow from wing foiling, then moving to a boom wing is probably a bad idea. If I was to target who this wing is for, then I would say it's for beginners through to experts, it's definitely for wave riders, and it's for foilers who primarily want a wave orientated wing that can still freeride or freestyle reasonably well. Let's do some pros and cons. So the pros for the float are it's lightweight, it's very playful, it has a good low end, it's more accomplished in freeride and jumps than I was expecting, it has good ease of use, and it is of course exceptional at flagging out. The cons are that it's not particularly fast, it gets a bit nervous when overpowered, and it doesn't cut as high upwind angles as a freeride wing. My overall summary is that this was a wing that was touted as being very much a wave wing, and actually it has more to it than this. Whilst it is very good at its target market of flagging out for wave riding, it can also turn its hand to freeride and a bit of freestyle, and it does it all to a good level. So if you're looking for a good wave wing but don't want to give up your freeride to get it, then this should definitely be on your shopping list. The float is £899 for the 5 metre wing, plus you need to add another £85 for a boom, which by today's prices is actually a good price for a high-end brand wing. I'd like to thank the Watersport Centre for loaning me their demo 5 metre wing for this review. I'll leave their links in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.